My brother Justice Sanghi, Dr. Agarwal, K.K. Agarwal and the other distinguished doctors on the dais, of the dais. It is indeed very heartening to see that the persons from the legal fraternity have also been invited to present their point of view today. I am reminded of an interesting anecdote which I must share with you. An agriculturist once told one of his visitors, "I educated one of my boys to be a doctor and the other a lawyer. You should be proud of them," said the visitor. "That sounds like an excellent arrangement." "I don't know about that," replied the agriculturist. "It looks as though it was going to break up the family. I got run into by a car and one of them wants to cure me and the other wants me to go lame and he can sue for damages." The recent television program Satyameva Jayate, anchored by Amir Khan, dealt with the condition of medical healthcare in the country and the malpractices in the medical profession. I can see that the show has generated a lot of heat, particularly amongst the members of the medical profession. Therefore, today's meet is presumably in the wake of that controversy, and perhaps the medical profession also wants to do some introspection. Now, let us see the points raised by Mr. Khan. Firstly, he talked about the fragility of life in India, prescribing wrong medication, students paying astronomical fees for medical education. The show also touched upon malpractices in the sale of medicines and suggested the usage of generic drugs. I mean, that is discussed at length in today's conference. He also emphasized the healthcare needs to be on very low priority of the government and compared the healthcare system in India with UK. Rightly, the episode also showed several humane aspects of the profession, including many doctors who continue to serve the society with complete nobility and dedication, treating patients with belonging to lower strata by charging nominal fees. Amir Khan is a showman. Therefore, the scrutiny of the healthcare system in the country and that of the doctors may have been seemingly exaggerated, highly exaggerated I will say, and one-sided at times, as the show painted most of the members of the medical fraternity with the same brush. However, it would be incorrect to say that the show did not reflect any public sentiment whatsoever. It is obvious that on some level the show touched a few raw nerves, thereby showing visible public anger with the Indian healthcare system. These are alarming signs for the medical profession. I would like to be very frank in my interaction with you. From hitherto being considered as the noblest profession, the medical profession is now under public scrutiny, and incidents of public anger and dissatisfactions are growing exponentially. See, we are making a serious mistake while discussing the conduct of the individual doctors. I think in the response to that particular program, I watched Dr. K.K. Agarwal and some other doctors responding to, and there was a sort of a debate between Mr. Amir Khan on the one side and the doctors on the other. And Dr. K.K. Agarwal mentioned a very important point, and that is the change of systems. So today's address, my address would be about the systems. What kind of systems are prevailing in our public hospitals, our private sector and also in the public sector. Ladies and gentlemen, over the years I had the opportunity of meeting a number of doctors. I met quite a few doctors during my years of growing up at Sholapur, also during my years of practice and later sitting on the bench in Mumbai and then in Madras and Delhi. Most of these doctors I have met have been dedicated, conscientious and hardworking. I have personally seen a large number of doctors working in Leprosy Center of Dr. Amte, Anandban, Pune Leprosy Center. Those doctors have been working with sole intention of serving humanity and mankind with little or nothing in return. I also visited some very dedicated institutes, particularly medical institutes, particularly in southern India. I must share an encounter that I had where the case of a very senior doctor of Bombay came before me. His services were terminated because he was suffering from hepatitis C. I don't know remember the medical terminology, but some severe illness. So they said it's dangerous to allow this doctor to operate. So there were, some settlement talks in my chamber. The hospital offered him a huge compensation. The doctor had tears in his eyes and he said he did not want any compensation, not even a single penny. But he only wanted to perform operations. Why? Because he is a doctor, he is a surgeon. So he must perform operations and not to accept money just like that. So this is a very heartening sight of the medical profession. But at the same time, ladies and gentlemen, I have seen the darker side of the medical profession, where some of the members of the profession, not necessarily for the profession, but today it's not only medical profession, but it's market forces which are operating in the medical field. We must understand that. And their sole motive is profit, and they adopt several unscrupulous means to achieve the same. I will discuss about it little later. It would not be entirely out of place to point out towards the legal profession in India, which is witnessing an unprecedented and rapid decline due to rampant malpractices and declining professional standards. There is utter dissatisfaction and anger amongst the members of the public towards the legal system for various reasons: cost, high cost, delays, the lack of professionalism, and so on. Unfortunately, what I see in the legal profession is that the bodies which are set up for checking these malpractices themselves are brimming with members who blatantly indulge in such practices. That is the tragedy of the legal profession. I am afraid that the medical profession will also go the same way if you do not do this some introspection, and you don't, can you not elect a few persons of unimpeachable character in the medical council? I am really surprised. This I may remind you that the 2 members of the bar council are prosecuted for taking bribe to grant recognition. It is not a matter of coincidence that the erstwhile members of the medical council are also facing similar charges. So you need a very strong association to, if you really want to maintain and sustain the ethical standards in your profession, you first need a very strong body of medical professionals. And it is a tragedy that the state has decided to take over the function of the medical council and they nominate. It's a dangerous thing that the state is intruding in this arena. It should be done by the doctors themselves. We have got, the very excellent and very great doctors in this country. We don't need government to interfere and to nominate members on this ad hoc body of the medical council. Traditionally, ladies and gentlemen, the 4 noble professions were considered to be that of medicine, law, education and clergy. The word professional is derived from the Latin word proficio, which means a public declaration with the force of a promise. Therefore, professionals are a group of persons who are expected to serve some important social goal and declare in a public way that their members promise to act or behave in certain ways, and that the group and the society may discipline those who fail to do so. The profession usually issues a code of ethics stating that the standards which are to be followed by which the member can be judged. The distinction that sets apart a professional from a businessman is that professionals have a fiduciary duty towards those they serve. and that is particularly a very stringent duty to ensure that their decisions and actions serve the welfare of their patients or clients even at their own cost. Professions have the codes of ethics which justify the obligations arising from this very peculiar professional duty. So, when the ethical problems arise, they arise because sometimes there is going to be a conflict between these obligations and fiduciary duties and the personal goals of a doctor. Now, medical ethics, we must understand one thing, it is not one branch of ethics. Therefore, it would be wrong to divorce it from the ethics of everyday's life. I do not see any difference with ethics which everybody is supposed to follow and the doctors, which medical ethics. It can become increasingly difficult to establish an agreed ethical mode in a number of situations where there is a variation in the moral base. Now, but one thing is very clear. See, there are absolute values of good and evil, right and wrong, and the belief in the sanctity of human life. These are remarkably similar in all societies. Thus, the three basic, I think that's a Hippocratical oath. Moral obligations in a doctor-patient relationship in society are beneficence and its companion in arm, non-maleficence, patient autonomy and justice. It is a judicial balance between these three obligations that determines ethical decisions in any clinical decision. The practice of medical profession, it is said, is a very broad philosophical sense, is a search for truth. So, all of you are really involved in the search of truth, where ethical and moral principles are inbuilt and inseparable within this search. In a more pragmatic sense, the practice of medicine is both an art and also a science. I remember my school days when there used to be a general practitioner. He would be like a member of the family, and maybe in a given situation one would be admitted in the hospital. So, it was a very informal setting during 70s or even early 80s. But the last decade, these developments in the medical field in the last century have revolutionized the field of medical practice, with healthcare becoming a profitable sector, attracting investors from diverse and varied backgrounds only with the profitable motives. It is now possible to diagnose diseases faster and more accurately using advanced diagnostic techniques. Medical management has become more effective with refined medicines having more specific actions and fewer side effects. Surgical treatment has moved towards less invasive modes of management with less morbidity and faster recovery. The medical fraternity is being more and more dependent upon the technology, and unfortunately here the market forces tend to influence the decision making by the doctor. This is inevitable consequence of this privatization boom which happened in this country in 1990. Among all these developments, now I feel that the medical profession in India is at crossroads, facing many legal challenges and the ethical issues. You will all agree with me that the fundamental values of medicine, they insist that the doctor's obligation is to keep the patient's interests above everything else. Now, whether these ethics have become obsolete in the wake of a large scale commercialization, whether all these ethics are to be sacrificed at the altar of profit motive and the making most of the profession. Now, the privatization boom of 1990 hit the public care system hard. Now, for the first time in India, now we have public hospitals introducing market based mechanism of cost recovery. So, those who could afford to pay, they do so. Those who cannot afford to pay receive free treatment. Now, there are instances where charitable hospitals, I am going to speak about that, procured land from the government at nominal rates upon promise that they shall treat the certain percentage of patients free. However, some of these charitable hospitals have never kept this promise. But the fact remains that a distinction exists between a private patient and a free patient. Now, when doctors behave differently, I will not say the doctors are doing it on their own, but the managements are doing it. With paying and non-paying patients, they send a strong message to their juniors endorsing existing class prejudices. I would like to place before you a very unique, stark illustration given by Dr. Abha Nagral in her own words. I will just narrate as she has stated her particular experience. X is a non-Bombay hailing from one of the northern states who has been referred to this large hospital in Mumbai. He walks into the hospital accompanied by two relatives from his hometown with a lot of hope and becomes a general patient. He expresses a wish to meet the doctor to whom he has been referred and is informed by the junior doctor that consultants see private patients. The best way to get a consultant to see him is to become a private patient. However, X has been told that the only hope of treating his disease is this hospital. So, he holds every doctor he encounters in great awe. He is seen by a junior member of the staff, usually a resident doctor in the outpatient department, and is asked to get a string of investigations done. So far so good. X morale is boosted, things are moving in the right direction for him at last. The process of getting investigations continue much longer than he had expected. Finally, he is told that it has been proven that he has a malignancy and needs surgery. But will the senior doctors at least see him once before the surgery? He is once again reminded that they are being consulted and that they do not have the time to see him as they are busy tending to more important matters. By now, he has a good taste of this discrimination, right from having his blood tested to having an endoscopy performed by the same junior doctor. He has had the privilege of catching a glimpse of the elusive consultant who does not seem to register his presence at all. He visits the outpatient department once a week to get a date finalized for his surgery. It has been 3 months now. He watches himself withering away. The weekly injections have hastened the worsening of his condition. They seem to just eyewash to buy some time for surgery. Along the way, realization slowly dawns on him that if he were a private patient, he would have been operated upon by now, and it would have been more economical to do so, to live in Mumbai with two relatives for more than 2 months. He goes to the outpatient department once more, now reduced to half the size he was when he first went to the hospital, and is asked to get the investigations repeated to monitor the disease's progress. Since it has been quite some time since he was first assessed, this report shows that the disease has advanced considerably. He is declared inoperable, given painkillers and sent home.